right, all right. Hey, so cool to have another episode of Living Boldly with Purpose, and then meeting some of the most interesting people that are in the world, folks that you don't normally get to talk to. Today, I'm going to talk to Tracy Dark, and I can't wait to because I just spent some time in the green room getting to know him a little bit. But he told me he's from Wisconsin, and I think I live. You guys all know I live in Denver, Colorado, and I don't know hardly anybody who lives in Wisconsin. And one of the reasons I don't know anybody who lives in Wisconsin, because he told me it's like a negative 16 degrees. Now, we've all watched like the Green Bay Packers and the fans that are part of Wisconsin that, own part of the team and are willing to go out and watch a game in minus 16 degree. And you think that that's just, a small amount of the population. But I think these folks just love the cold. I don't know what it is about the cold. And, we're all born somewhere, right? We probably hang out close to the places that we're born. That becomes our life. And, some of us venture out and move out. I happen to have been born in Denver, Colorado. I went to California for 25 years, and then I came back to Denver, Colorado. So, most of my life has been on the West Coast instead of on the East Coast. Tracy, I don't know if you know the statistic before we kind of get into our show, because it seems like a lot of my folks that I listen to are in the Eastern time zone, and you guys are still Central time zone, right? Are you?
Okay, yeah, we're Central.
So you're not in the Eastern, so you're part of this anomaly, not quite. But a lot of my guests, and I know you have a podcast, and the guests that you have that are all part of the United States. I think it's like 350 million people in the United States of America. 65% of that 350 million people live in the Eastern time zone. I'm like, no wonder I'm doing all these podcasts in Eastern time. It's just, there's just people after people. I'm going to New York tomorrow, and I'm going to be around a whole bunch of people. And by Monday, when I'm ready to come back, I'm going to be like breathing, trying to find out, how do I get away from all these people? And I like people. I'm an extrovert. I love people. I just don't like so many people. So 15% of the population is in the Central time zone. So that's you. So, and then another 15% are in the Western time zone. And then my time zone, which is Mountain, is only 5% of the population, because nobody lives in Montana. I mean, a few people do, I guess. Like Wyoming's the size of the northern half of the United States, and they got 500,000 people. They haven't hit 1 million people or something like that. Nobody lives in New Mexico. And so it's just, this seems to be phenomenal to me that there's that many people that live on the Eastern side. So I don't know, I brought that up today. I was just interested in it and thinking about it, and has said it before. And so I guess it's because I'm just excited to talk to somebody who actually lives where it's really cold. Like so cold that if you're out there for a while without the right protection and stuff, you won't be out there much longer.
Nope,
It'll go.
You might be in there forever.
You can't find a way to get shelter. But then you guys got the humidity and stuff too in the summer, right? It gets pretty humid, and then you got like mosquitoes that are sides of birds and that kind of stuff. That you
have birds, to shoot.
That are there. But I hear it is a beautiful, beautiful place, and so
it is an amazing place to live.
Isn't that's cool? Cool. All right, so I want you to tell your story, and your story can start anywhere you want in life. I tell my guests, if you want to start at the beginning in your mama's womb, start there. But just have fun doing, because I believe that people care so much more about who you are before they care about what you do. And then now they know you as a person, and now they can say, okay, now I can relate to him. Yeah. Now what he does just makes it that much more cooler.
That's a good point. No, that's a great starting point. I was born a poor white boy. No, I'm kidding.
Not the jerk. That's in the South, right?
That's right.
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen that movie in forever.
Since like the 80s or whatever.
What a great movie.
But yeah, a lot of fun. I was lucky enough to be born to an amazing set of parents. My dad was a lifer in the U.S. Army. And so we moved all over the United States. So when people used to ask me, where's your hometown? I'm like, all over. And then you got to explain, what do you mean by all over? And on top of that, my dad was stationed 2 times over in Germany while I was still a youngster. So, between like kindergarten and third grade, and then between, seventh grade and my freshman year of high school, I lived in Germany, which was really cool because my grandfather is German and we spoke German as part of my growing up, which made it a whole lot easier to be a child over on the German economy because we didn't live on base the last time we were there. Anyway, so I got to grow up around a diverse group of folks, because if you're in the military, right, everyone is there. It's not like I was born and raised in this little city in Podunk, Texas, where all you saw were these folks, whatever these folks might be for you. And so I got to grow up with some amazing people. And my dad retired right as I was starting high school. And so that put me back. They decided to retire into Southern California. Funny you mentioned
Okay.
you lived out in California there for a while. So right at about the time I was starting to burgeon as a man and go into high school, I went from a very structured environment
Mhm.
to probably the most liberal place on the planet, let alone in the United States. So, during my rebellious years, I got extra crazy as a result of that. I ended up joining the service myself right out of high school, and I went back to Germany. I
So
rec-
you went to high school in Southern California then?
I went to high school in Southern California, John Glenn in Norwalk High. And what's
All right.
funny is my counselor in high
Mhm.
school was my mother's principal because she went to elementary school in the same town where I went to high school because that's where she was. That was the reason we retired there, is
Exactly.
because great grandma was getting old. We wanted to be close to her. So little little sidebar there. Anyway,
Yeah. Oh, cool.
back. So I joined the military right out of high school. Go back to Germany, have a good time. Know the language, yada yada yada, and do my tour duty, and then I come back and I get out of the military and I start a little programming company, and landed a couple of really cool clients. Landed this really big client, and me and my buddies were out, whooping it up, having a good time, and I, I'm I'm one of those. Unlike you, I like people. I
Mhm.
have no problem being the social butterfly. Even if you bring me to a strange party, I'm probably going to know half the people by the time I leave
Yeah.
there. I might not know, their names. I can't remember them all, but I'll certainly will have met them and chatted with
Mhm.
them. So I'm sitting there chatting up the owner of the bar we're celebrating at, and I'm like, oh, man, I don't know how I'm going to do all this. I made these promises for this big client. I'm really glad for it. I know I can do it, but man, I crunched the timelines. And that was the introduction to my dark side. Got started down a path of addiction on drugs, methamphetamines to be more specific. And this is about the timeline. If I want to date everybody, obviously you can see I got the long gray beard. Um, if anyone's seen the movie Blow with Johnny Depp, same
Mhm.
time frame, right?
Okay.
Cocaine and methamphetamine was everywhere in Southern California. And I took about a 2-year detour on the dark side of the drug scene. And unfortunately, having entrepreneurial skills, I engaged those entrepreneurial skills to the point where the police knocked on my door, 2 in the morning. I wasn't there, luckily, and but it was just like you see in the movies. I was out doing probably a 3-day party binge, and I came back Sunday morning and I saw the tape over the door, and I go inside and furniture's tipped over, clothes are everywhere. They dumped out the fruity pebbles and the instant potatoes on the floor, looking for whatever they were looking for. Luckily, being semi-intelligent, not intelligent enough not to not be in it, but intelligent enough to not to hide anything in my home, they didn't find anything of substance. While I was starting to clean up, a couple of detectives knocked on the door and, "Hey, you Tracy?" They take me downtown and ask me all the right questions. They were naming names that they shouldn't have known and making connections they shouldn't have been making. And no, I don't know. I may have met them, shooting pool at the bar, but I don't
Yeah.
know them kind of thing. And I'm walking back home. Here's a sidebar. You ever notice that they're willing to take you to the police station, but they're not nice enough to take you back home? Anyway, anyway,
I didn't know that, but I
that,
just I
that,
always wonder,
no,
like,
I'm just
in
I'm
the
just letting you
shows.
know, right? You
Yeah.
might need an Uber to come home nowadays. But
Wow. Well, in the shows, they always say we want you to come downtown, and I'm like,
right,
well, are you arresting me? Because I don't want to go downtown.
exactly. So, like I said, they asked all the right questions, and I was probably down there 4 hours or so, give or
Oh
take.
gosh.
And
Okay.
I'm walking back, and it was probably a 2 hour walk back from the police station to where I lived at the time.
Yeah.
And I could hear my dad's voice in my ear, not physically, but in my in my head. Family first, He was always a family first kind of guy.
Mhm, mhm.
And I had a 3-month-old baby at this point in time.
Oh gosh. Okay.
That was a real kick to the head because
Yeah.
I'm not hosing up someone else's life now. Or I'm not hosing up just my life. I'm now hosing up someone else's life.
Yeah.
So I get home and I pick up the phone. I call mom. I say, Mom, I need your help. And she goes, What do you need? What's going on? Not something I want to talk about on the phone, especially not after this experience. So, I go sit down with mom and dad and just kind of, bare my soul and, ask for help. And God loved them. Thanks to them and my brother from another mother, I moved into the garage, which you can do in Southern California.
Yes,
And
you
my
can.
daughter, who's 3 months old at the time, moved into what used to be my old bedroom before I, left to go to the military. And I picked myself back up and, dusted myself off and started getting my life back together. And that started, a corporate career. And
Mhm.
I got to work for some amazing companies over the course of the next 20-ish years: Coca-Cola, Home Depot, David's Bridal, La Senza, Victoria's Secret, just going all around doing marketing and planning for all these amazing companies. But I
Mhm.
had this entrepreneurial bug. I was always running some sort of side hustle, doing something, especially after, the 90s when the internet broke
Yeah.
everything when it comes to, being able to do a side hustle. I was in there. I think me and Tom Antion were probably a couple of the first folks that were selling something online that back in
Oh
the
wow.
90s. And just ever since then, um, my second daughter comes along. She has issues. She needs a liver and small bowel transplant.
Wow.
She passes away at 18 months.
Oh.
There's a story behind that. I'm happy to go into there. And when she passed away, I knew that I could easily fall back into old habits
Oh, absolutely.
to
Yeah.
numb the pain. Easy, right? Because I experienced them. I know how awesome it could be to hide. But I still had my oldest daughter, and I did not want to fall back into selfish Tracy mode. So I threw myself into personal development. And, that was again the same time when, Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar and Anthony Robbins and all those big names were doing those stadium filling events. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I lived in Atlanta now because I moved to join Coca-Cola. So now I'm out in Atlanta. They all come to Atlanta. And so I went to every single one of those events I could and started enacting the things I was learning while I was sitting
Okay.
there
Good.
mesmerized by these amazing
Yeah.
people giving these, teaching these life lessons. You're like, oh, it's all great to learn, but you got to do it.
Yeah.
And when I started doing it, there was a period at Coca-Cola where I got 5 promotions in 3 years, unheard of. So people are like, What are you doing? Who do you know?" And
Mhm.
so I started telling them, "This is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm learning. So I'm just doing this in real life." And they're like, "Could you teach me?" So that starts the side hustle of the coaching career. And right, that's, early 2000s. And a few years into that, YouTube comes around, and I started, sharing some YouTube videos. It was still kind of wonky back then. I wasn't feeling in the zone. So I hopped onto a platform called Blog Talk Radio, which was my introduction to uh, podcasting. This would have been
Okay.
2007. And, they had a really cool platform in that you could do like we're doing now, but without the video. But they were connecting you via audio around the world.
Yeah.
And they offered free phone numbers so someone could call in and like a radio show, old school
Mhm.
radio. You, I'm sure you remember radio.
I do. I had a
Some of your
radio show
listeners
for a
might
while,
not
but
know
yeah.
the real good radio, but
Yeah.
you could call. And I was so vibing with that, being able to jump on, share knowledge, and as people could chime in or put in comments or whatever, I was like, this is it right here. This is where I need to be. And that kicked me off into real world podcasting in 2012. I launched my first real podcast. That one's still going. And just started sharing all the personal development stuff and the whole 9 yards, having a good time. And then I hung it up. And I hung it up because I remember getting off the microphone one night after I hit record and thinking, you freaking poser. I was getting on the microphone saying, here's all the amazing things that you can have in your life if you just do these things I'm teaching you. Meanwhile, at that particular moment in time, I was going through a nasty divorce. I had just gone through a bankruptcy, right? All my life was not falling apart, but it was in turmoil. And I was in the middle of trying to get my caca back together. So I hung up my microphone. Hindsight being 2020, if I had to do that all over again, I would lean into that and share that. I wasn't comfortable back then sharing that, being that vulnerable. And so it's a lesson learned. And so if anyone's in there and you're going through something and you're a podcaster or you're a content creator of any sort, I would urge you to lean into that discomfort as much as you're able to and share that with your audience. Because to David's point earlier, me sharing the story, you get to know me. Now you're like, oh, okay, now I can resonate with you. If I'd have done that, that's probably what had happened back then. But I didn't. Here we are today, moving on. A few years later, my life gets back together. I meet an amazing woman, we get married, and get the household settled in. I pick up the microphone for that podcast again and start a whole new one in 2019 that officially launched in 2020. And we all know the fun and frolic that happened that year. And here we are. So that's the Reader's Digest condensed version. Happy to dig wherever you'd like to dig into.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack in all of this. And
it's been a rocket ride.
Here's where I will start.
Sure.
As I'm thinking through that is you got some cool stuff going on in your background. Yeah, you have this I got a thunderstorm happening, and then I got some Japanese writing, and
got my brainstorm happening.
Here's about some of that first.
Sure. If we look over here, over this shoulder, I've got my bronze eagle that is coming up with a fish. You probably can't see that level of detail. And my flag, and there's my airborne flag over there. But over here on the other side, I have this little cloud light effect that is, triggered off my voice. So as I speak, the lightning. So if I be quiet, it stops. Over here, you can see my my microphone. It says the Dark Horse Entrepreneur, established in 2020. We were just talking about that picture of my missus and me with Kiss right there. And then over here we have the Japanese writing, happiness, tranquility, harmony, and serenity. And if I lean way over, you can see half of Gene Simmons' face. That's the case of the bass guitar that he signed for my wife and I on our wedding. So lots of things happening.
Came to your wedding and performed, or you went to his concert?
Well, we got married. We got married at the. I'm a big Kiss fan. I have been since 1976. And when I started dating my now wife, we were actually one of the first dates we went on together was a Kiss concert. And as we were sitting there in the concert, on the side screens, they showed an advertisement for the Kiss Chapel, which is in Vegas, in the Rio. And I jokingly said up there, I said, if I ever get married again, I'm only going to get married to someone cool enough to get married there. And she's like, okay. And so about 2 years later, we got married at the Kiss Chapel in the Rio. I got to know the owner, Christina, who runs that place. She also franchises out Monster Mini Golf. And so the Kiss Chapel right next to it is the Kiss themed Monster Mini Golf, all in the same space. And So as a result of all that, she's also the young lady that is the manager of the Gene Simmons bass guitar experience. So if you go behind the scenes at one of the, well, they don't tour anymore, at one of the Kiss concerts, and to meet Gene and get a signed guitar, she's the one coordinating all that everywhere that they go. And when I learned all that about her, I was like, I need to have you on the show, not because you're connected to Gene, but because you have this amazing, unique business history that I'd like to, delve into. So, I interviewed her on the show, got to know her a little bit, stayed connected. And when we decided to get married at her facility, I said, could you get one of the members there? And she's like, well, yeah, if you're willing to pay for it. Right.
Yeah.
And we didn't end up getting Gene or Paul, which were our first choices because of scheduling. But Eric Singer, the drummer, was our ring bearer for the event, and he's actually
Nice.
in the nuptials, and he's standing up there with the party. So yeah, we didn't have them performing, but we did have one of the members there at the events as it was being officiated. It
Oh,
was,
that is,
and he was very generous with his time because we only planned for him to be there like 20 minutes, like for the actual ceremony, and then to come sign some signatures for the, for the guests that came to partake. And he stayed there like an hour and a half, just
cool.
chit chatting with us and everything. And I was really, you, they say don't meet your idols. Sometimes it actually works out really well.
Yeah, sometimes they'll disappoint you, and sometimes they will
They're
surprise you.
people just like you and me, right?
Of course, but we idolize them. We don't think. Now, one of the things that is, I guess, is cool about Kiss is it's a band. For those of you under 40 that may have no clue what we're even talking about, but I always thought it was neat because of the makeup and stuff that they wore.
Yeah,
that they could be superstars with the makeup on, but they could take the makeup off and be normal folks walking up and down the streets, and most people would never
wouldn't
recognize
even,
them
yes.
and
And they
not
didn't.
even follow them around or try to,
Yeah,
interrupt their
and they
dinners or
didn't
that kind of.
take that makeup off until, what was it, the late '80s?
Yeah.
I mean, it was after the Unmasked album, which we thought that's when they were gonna do it, but it was right around the time that they did that MTV live show. That
Mhm.
was about the time they had just taken the makeup off, which I think was the late '80s, early '90s. But you're right. I mean, they went through the whole '70s and the '80s and into the '90s, and for the most part, people didn't know who they were. And
Yeah.
then, they took the makeup off, and
Yeah.
then they put it back on, because and I'm glad they did, because for me, it wasn't about whether they had makeup on or not. It was about the characters that they represented when they were on that stage. For
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
right? They had created this whole show spectacle, and it was their brand. And listen to me, ladies and gentlemen, if you're doing business, right? It was their brand.
Yeah.
And
It
they
was.
took away the makeup, which stripped away their uniqueness. They were now just another four-guy band up there singing songs you may have loved, right? But now half the show is gone. I went to shows pre taking the makeup off and during the makeup free season, and then after the makeup was back on. The makeup free season, even though they did a lot of the exact same things, Gene still spat fire and drooled the blood, and it wasn't the same. And I don't know if it was from my perspective viewing it, the costume was gone, the makeup was gone, that I was like, it's okay. It's like watching a rehearsal for a movie versus the final product.
Yeah.
Or if it was them, because the makeup and the garish costumes were gone, that they performed it a little differently. Or it could have been a little both. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. So, when I look at your history and I think of identity and
Mhm.
becoming a person, and you're a big, personal development person, about based on all the people you talked about,
Yeah.
um, what changed in those different identities? Because I think back to the time when you were, meth, and I would love to hear how you were able to get clean from meth, because meth is such an addictive drug.
Mhm.
That's
It
to call
is.
you, maybe kind of tell a little bit about that story. But
Yeah.
like the identity of being a dad, an identity of being a husband, as you're trying to be this entrepreneur at the same time, what kind of things did you have to change in your thought process and what you did in order to grow and make money at the same time?
Oh my goodness, that is such a deep question.
It
And it's a
is.
great question. It really is. It's something a lot of folks want to know the answer to. And for me, each one of the identity shifts or enhancements were a result of turning around and looking back into, I'll call it the abyss, the darkness, the 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 ugly part of your life, whatever you want to call it, and learning the lesson. That's the key. Everyone, and we've all heard them, the people that like to throw to pity parties, and they only invite those that will listen to them whine and cheese. But they can all look back into their dark times and relive them. That's not what I'm talking about. I want you to look back and learn from it. So when it comes to the meth adventures, the misadventures of meth,
Mhm.
I learned I was a really good salesperson. I learned I could actually run a business. It wasn't a legal business. I learned that I could read people really, really well, just right off the bat. And
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
I learned to read people's cues as an ongoing, because when you're in that world, when you're on the dark side of the tracks, there are people who just want to take advantage of you. Heck, in regular life, there are people that just want to take advantage of you. But
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
augmented when you're exposing yourself to them there. Okay.
Mhm.
So you learn to read people in their language, the micro expressions on their face, how they carry themselves. Sometimes it's you're just looking at going, okay, you have never approached me like that before. What's
Yeah,
up?
yeah.
And it's a skill. I used it to do dirty things, but it was still a skill. And so I learned from that and applied it going forward into business, into
Mhm.
corporate life, into entrepreneurship, into applying things, into my podcast, etc. So those are good things that came out of it. I would like that I didn't have to learn that way, but I did, right? And I also realized really, really fast, and a lot of folks, I don't think even have learned this, even at my age, that not
Mhm.
everyone is your friend. They're not. They might
Yeah,
say they're your friend, because I went into that bad season of my life and I had what I thought would probably be 15 people I would have called real good friends. On the other side of that, I realized it was three, maybe
yeah,
four. That people
yeah.
that were really my friends. Everyone else, poof, evaporated into the ether. And that means the people inside that I met that I thought were really close to me during that addiction phase, as well as the folks that I met I assumed loved me before that happened. On
Mhm.
the other side, like I said, you find out. And then you start realizing, okay, those are the only kind of people I really want in my life, in my inner circle.
Yeah.
The inner circle is going to be the smallest. We're talking your spouse and your children, and that those couple of brothers and sisters that you love, like you kill or die for them. And then outside of that, it starts getting, there's more people, but they have less connection to
Mhm.
you, right? They
Yeah,
know
yeah.
less and less of your secrets until
Mhm.
you get way out here to the fan base, like the band. Okay. So yeah, that was one of the big things I learned. And I learned how selfish I was going through that era. That was my party phase. Right.
Mhm.
Everything was about me, 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 me. I want more. I want more. Give me this. It's all about what I wanted. And coming back, walking back from the police station, I realized, like I said, it wasn't about me anymore. And my identity shifted
Mhm.
to a dad. And here's what's really cool about that. The morning my daughter was born, my brother from another mother, Robbie, who was not, and to the day he passed away just a few years ago, into drugs at all, right? And didn't like that I was doing it, but remained my friend. He just made me promise to him, you're not going to bring that in my house. That's all I'm asking you. What you do with your life is up to you, Tracy, brother. I hate it. I don't like it, but just don't bring it in my house. Okay. And I respected that. So when Talia was born, he came out and we were out. It was like 2 a.m. in the hospital parking lot. He was like, congratulations. I got to give you one piece of advice though. And he's probably the one person other than my father would actually listen to this advice. Now that she's here, everything has to change. And that's how he worded it. Everything has to change. And it didn't hit me then. But later on, after I was back at mom and dad's house, after everything had happened with them, kicking open the door, it really hit me what he meant when he said that, because I hadn't changed it yet. And once I did, and once I realized, it was like, oh my God, that's right. It's not about me. It's about me and her. Right. And so that shifted me into dad mode and, cleanup mode on top of that. And because I didn't step back right into my own business like I had started when I got out of the military, I had stepped into corporate America. I began to take on that corporate mantle, that, 3-piece suit, Coca-Cola. I was working in downtown Coca-Cola. So I took up that mantra, cut the hair for a while and then just let it grow naturally. So I kind of eased them back into long hair, Tracy. And so I took up that identity for a while. And there's good and bad in that. What was good about it was I was working in corporate America. I had a really good job. I could raise my family, raise my kids, and buy a house and cars and all the trappings that come with that. The problem was I was fitting myself. I was the round peg finding a square hole that I could fit into and just kind of adjust into the corners. You know what I'm talking about? So I was there, but there was still that something missing. And I kept trying different things until I found it. And like I mentioned earlier, the coaching request that came in, whoa, wait a minute, that's even better than, wow. I felt more fulfilled. It wasn't paying the bills yet, but I could feel that fulfillment coming out of, hopping on a phone call or sitting down at a lunch meeting and sharing and guiding someone and them seeing, you could see the little light bulb going on over there. Wow, it worked. You're like, yeah, I know. And so that to me, being able to help someone else open their eyes, and it's really not me doing it for them because they're doing the work, but you're just like, here, don't do that. I know that's what you think is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Here's what I think you should try, A, B, and C. You're happy to go on your own path. That's fine.
Of course,
But I've been down that road, or I know 4 to 5 people that have been down that road. And here's what you want to do before you take the step on that road, because that way you're already ready for it. You don't have to stumble, bumble, fall on a face plant into the first pothole that you trip across. And so that shifted now into coach mode. And does that answer your question? I know it was a long-winded answer.
Oh no, that absolutely answered, because those identity shifts. And so now you're in kind of this mode now where serving people becomes more important than, like we said, backwards, me.
Yes.
Right. And so part of in this podcast, I talk about living boldly with purpose. And maybe you can answer this. Is it possible to live boldly in your purpose without serving others?
No, I don't think so. But I will say this with a caveat.
Okay.
You have to live boldly in your purpose to serve yourself primarily. You have to fill your own cup first. Okay. And here's why I say that, because there was a period of time everything was going magical, right? Corporate America's going great. I'm going to the kids or all these. I got all the trappings, but I was working like 14, 16 hours a day. Now, mind you, I only worked Monday through Friday. But Saturday and Sunday, I was just decompressing. There was actually one point where my 2 daughters come into the kitchen and say, "Dad, we need to talk." And they were, probably 5 and 10 at the
Mhm,
time.
mhm,
Wait a minute. When your 10-year-old says, "Dad, we need to talk," there's something going on. And they were I'll give you the synopsis is they were thankful for the things that my work was giving them, but they would like me to be there too.
Ooh.
You know? So,
Mm.
I hadn't missed any of the event. I think I missed one event. I hadn't missed any of the events. I always made that, a priority. So, if they were having some school event, I was there. But, because I was leaving to go to work at 4 in the morning and coming back at 5 or 7 at night, there was minimal hours that dad got to be dad or around the girls, and they were sharing that, and I was like, "Wow, damn."
Yeah.
I was being a father, but
Mhm.
I wasn't getting I wasn't clocking in enough daddy time, if that makes sense,
Yeah, yeah.
And so
Time matters.
it's those little things that you have to pay attention to. And if
Mhm.
someone smacks you upside the head or taps you on the shoulder and gives you a reminder like that, you might want to listen.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so good when you think about inputting that time and how it works, and how important it is to spend that time
Hmm.
uh, with the people. And one of the things that I think that we don't understand sometimes is because you're living in purpose doesn't mean you have to live in sacrifice.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
that's the where people like, when I was working in nonprofit, and it became or even when I was working at the university at Azusa Pacific University, it became where we expect you to do this stuff because it is your purpose,
Hmm.
because you're living in, I was working in homeless services and working, running a 50-bed facility of folks that are experiencing
Hmm.
homelessness. And so, yeah, that was my purpose for that time. But I didn't need to sacrifice my family. I didn't need to
Right.
sacrifice my relationship with my wife. I don't
Hmm.
need to sacrifice all my time. And just because you say, get up and go do this on this middle of 2 o'clock in the morning, doesn't mean that that is my purpose.
Right.
My purpose is to work within that organization, but like you said, still filling my own cup. And I
Hmm.
think once we get into some of those jobs, or we get into some of those things that we think, oh, this is what I was born for, that
Mm.
somehow it's going to take your entire life out of
Right.
that, and you just dedicate, and I do believe there's seasons. There are seasons
100%.
where you got to spend. Oh yeah, we're getting ready to have an event, so now I'm going to spend 15 hours a day for the next 2 weeks making sure this event goes
Exactly.
on.
Yeah.
But then what happens after the event? Go ahead.
I think I was listening to a video today. There's a gentleman I like listening to on YouTube, and him and his friends have started their own platform, and so he can say some of the things that you don't want to say on YouTube.
Mhm.
But um, he made a statement to one of his friends. He was on his friend's podcast. He says, "If you can find yourself." I'm going to use the word job, a career path, a hobby, a project that you love doing. So at least that you don't feel like putting something in your mouth and pulling a trigger. And
Mhm.
you can do that for 5 years. You're going to find out you're probably quite passionate about it. And there's where the magic is at, right? I didn't say you had to be great at it,
No.
right? Didn't say you had to love doing every single part of it, but you have a passion for it. And here's another follow-up. It's gonna change. And to your point, it's gonna change. A brief story, way back when I was a teenager, I picked up a guitar and started teaching myself to play. And I was guided by one of the former members of KISS who just recently passed away, Ace Frehley. There was just something about the passion and the energy that came off of his guitar that
Mhm.
resonated with me as a teenage boy. So I actually went down to the pawn shop on the other side of town. $36, I bought myself a guitar and an amplifier. This would have been in early 80s, late 70s. So it's a lot of money for 36 bucks back then. And I just started doing it. But here's what continued. This is the beginning of the me stage. The lead guitarist is the guy that gets all the attention other than the lead singer. And I
Mhm.
couldn't. I could sing, but I wasn't that singer. I mean, we're not talking about, oh, no, no. But I could tear it up on a guitar. And so I kept playing guitar through my teen years because it got me that attention that I liked.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't touched a guitar in 3 decades,
Oh, really? Okay.
but I did pick up the drums, and I love them. I could sit down and you notice I didn't say I'm good at them.
Mhm.
I love them because I could sit down and play an old song, a new song, and just make up a beat and just let everything out physically and rhythmically all at the same time. You can't. It's different on a guitar. For me, right? I like that physical. I'm a very animated person. That the whole. If I'd have found that back when I was a teenager, I probably would have. Would I? I don't know. I so much wanted to be the center of attention. Being the jester. I was the
Yeah,
outward
yeah, yeah.
guy. So it wouldn't have worked because I would have been in the back of the band, and I wouldn't have liked that. Anyway, so
No,
to
that
your
is so
point, the seasons go through. I went through my I need to be in front of everybody phase, and now I can be the support crew in the back, laying down that beat that everyone follows through the entire song while they do what it is they need to do while we're all making the same music.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think people might miss sometimes is you can be good at a lot of things.
Right? You
And
can.
sometimes, it kind of even takes over. Just because I'm good at it doesn't mean that I have to do this. And other folks will try to influence our purpose
Mm-hmm.
based on them wanting you to do what they know you're good at. Like,
Yes.
let's say you are a good singer. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you should do that. You need to go to karaoke. You need to get on the show. You need to go on American Idol. You need all that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a good singer, and God has given me that gift, but I'm passionate about teaching kids this and this and this and this, right?
There. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can remember. I can remember when we settled into Southern California, and it was the teenage years. Hey, go get a job, Tracy, for the extra money. Yada yada yada. Okay, cool. One of the things my mom said, because we had just went to Disneyland one weekend, and there were the people there doing caricatures, right?
Mhm.
Whipping them out like it was nobody's business, And mom said, "Well, you could do that." I'm like, "I could." She goes, "Well, why don't you go apply to get a job there?" I says, "Because I draw what I feel, and the minute I sit down and have to draw something for someone else, it's not going to be the same. I'm not going to put the same level of care into it that I do when I sit down and draw something because I want to draw it. I want to draw, raptor birds or tanks or beautiful surfing scenes or muscle cars. Those are what she's used to seeing in incredible detail." And she's like, "But it would be so easy." Well, yeah.
Mm.
And I would be bored out of my skull. I had more fun working at Wiener Schnitzel at the drive-through because I got to interact with people, joke around, have a good time, yuck it up, yada blah blah blah. And I had a blast. I tried working at McDonald's as a teenager. No, no. It was easier work because of the way they have their systems set up, where you can just, I
Mhm.
mean, you just mindlessly do it, and that was part of the problem. I needed to be engaged. I needed to have people around me that was probably part of what made it work so well. Is some of the other folks were like me. They wanted to yuck it up too, and so yeah, you have to find, which almost makes another point. You may be good at it, but if you're in the wrong place, it won't matter. Right?
Yeah.
I just dropped an episode about emotional intelligence
Okay.
because as you grow your emotional intelligence, you start seeing things you can't unsee. And this applies in so many parts of your life, relationships and conspiracy theories, whatever. Once you see something, you're like, "Oh, I can't unsee that." And the same thing happens in your workspace. If you start growing your emotional intelligence, you might realize, I don't like it here. I like my job. I like what I do as a way of earning revenue, but I don't like it here. Okay. Maybe that's your emotional intelligence saying you to get up and go somewhere would work for you, like what I did for McDonald's. No, I think I worked there a month, and I'm like, I'm out. I can't. No. And I landed at Wiener Schnitzel, and I was happy as a lark. It was a good time.
When you say the emotional intelligence, and one of the things I struggle with is the more that you can see how human beings interact with each other and champion relationships and understanding this is what they're really saying, not what's coming out of their mouth. You can tell by their physicality. You can tell by the way that their eyes are moving, and you see that. Well, you hear folks sometimes on the phone, and you know the conversation because they have it on speakerphone is going south. And so many times I want to jump in and go, dude, if you're just listening to the tone, that what you just said was probably the stupidest thing you could possibly say that's coming in. And I want to help you. And it's so hard sometimes, that I can see it now, because the more we grow, the more we separate ourselves from some of the other folks that have been part of our circle. You talked about circles later.
Yeah.
And those associations. And so as you've been growing, because you're putting in personal development to your life all this time, how have you been able to control some of those circles so that you always feel like you're moving forward, like filling your cup first? Because the more we grow, our cup needs different things in it, but without saying, well, yeah, you kind of can't be my friend no more, or I don't want to hang out with you no more, because you're not growing, they're not, right?
I was lucky enough in that geography did it for me. And those that reached out were basically the ones that I wanted in my inner circle anyway.
Gotcha.
Because when I left Southern California, went to Atlanta, well, that was kind of break one. And we were there for 14 years. And then I go up to Philadelphia for, David's Bridal. And I go to Columbus, Ohio, and Cleveland, Ohio, to work for other corporations. That was Victoria's Secret and what have you. The geography did a lot of it for me. Now, some of the folks in those different locations, still friends with. Some of them, I'll actually go and see them every once in a while. The OGs from the Southern California days, like I said, there's 4, and one's passed away. Now I've reconnected with a couple of the folks from way back when, who've started to finally grow, and that is me being open enough to say, look, I remember being not who I am today. So I'm willing to give you the opportunity to be not who you were back then when I knew you. If you've grown along a path that brings us back together, cool. If not, well, then we can have a text, a chat, or whatever, and then go on with our lives. And sometimes that's difficult. I sat down after I went through that wicked divorce and everything. I sat down, and one of the things I did is I wrote down who I wanted in my life. And really, I focused on who I wanted to share the rest of my life with, right? What significant other. And, once you get past, I'm going to be honest, I'm a guy. I had to get past the long hair, blue eyes, attractive, yada, yada, right? Once I got past that and started getting into, the values, how does she want to, hold herself? How will she let me hold her, in life? And I wrote it all out. I sat down, and then you continue on with, okay, now I know who that's my most intimate person. That's who we're like this. Now, who's just outside of that? Well, it was easy because I had one of those in my life. He was still around when I was writing that. So it was kind of like just adding, okay, well, that's the kind of person I want. I need a couple of more of those. And now I've kind of told myself, my inner self, right? You write the goals down, put them in an envelope, and open the envelope a year later. Some of those goals are going to be accomplished because you've active that reticular activating system has got the signals. I know where you want to go. Here's where we're headed.
Yeah.
And barring any big significant event in your life, you'll get them done. Uh, About 6 months after I wrote those things down, I met the woman that is now my wife, and we're going to be celebrating 8 years of marriage, and we've been together 12. So
Okay.
that worked out well. Trust me, coming out of my last one, I was super jaded. I was like, I don't know if I ever want to get married again. I'm just saying, right? And after have been burned with folks, drug life, corporate America life, they're all gangsters in one form or another. Some are legal, some are not. That's what it really boils down to, which makes for a good television show, but it's not fun to have happen to you. So having those things down, going, okay, these are the values I'm going to stand on when it comes to inner circle, level 2, level 3, and beyond. And it really showed itself right about 2018. My wife and my daughter and I decided we wanted to get a little bit more involved in our local government. And so we joined up with our local party, started getting involved. I actually considered running for, school board. And we even made it to the point where we were selected to be delegates here in the state of Wisconsin to represent our community. And I look back at it, and it was an amazing adventure. We had a great time. We learned a lot of things. We learned quite a few things I didn't like to learn, but it just comes back around to what we were saying earlier. Sometimes once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it really decided that, we don't want to live in this community anymore because the bodies in power were taking it somewhere we didn't want it to go. We lived in it was a rural community, it's about 45 minutes north of Milwaukee, and it was growing, and they just wanted it to grow more. We're like, no, that's not why we moved here. And so, once we were able to, we ended up moving 4 hours away, and we're in the sticks now. And it's amazing. I love it. And trust me, we'll be keeping an eye on, the governing bodies in this area in case things go crazy. But it's like you said, it's those seasons. All right, my city season is over with. I'm going to move out to the burbs. Nope, that season is over with. I'm moving out to rural. I want to be next to the farmers. Okay, well, you're jacking around with my farmers now. Let me move way out. And we got a 40-acre farm out here, and we're servicing ourselves first, right? We're growing some vegetables and some fruits, got a little orchard started with the plan of, okay, well, I know eventually when these trees mature, I'm not going to be able to eat all this. So we've made friends with an amazing gentleman who's Amish and runs this little store down the road. Okay, he's happy to sell it for us, right? So it's these steps. It's just shifting through the season, saying, okay, there it is. But if I didn't serve myself first to make sure I was taken care of and my family was taken care of, well, then I can't give anything I don't have to somebody else. So you got to fill your cup first. It kind of brings that full circle.
Oh yeah, so many good analogies and so many good nuggets that you put in here. I think back to the airplane thing where you put your mask on before you put your kid's mask on.
Yeah.
Because then both of you die, right? And it's the same kind of concept. And what I love about the things that you've been talking about today, they have all been action oriented. And so many people get so stuck in not being able to take action when life is not treating them the way that they want. They sit there and they complain all day long about how bad it is, right? Because you can still be in the city complaining about the city, and you could get probably a whole bunch of people on the bandwagon of complaining. But you said, wait a minute, there's people who love this city the way it is. Yeah. I don't. So I'm not going to be here anymore. And there are times to fight. But why are you going to fight against the tide that is just not what you really love, and then move to something you love? You're in California. You take the walk from the from the police station. You say, wait a minute, this isn't my life.
Right.
I'm going to not only stop doing this, but I'm going to move all the way across the country to Atlanta, and I'm going to start over.
Yep.
And if there's one key that I've gotten out of our conversation today, which has been phenomenal, is just that you're the guy, and the reason that a success leaves clues. The clues are the action steps throughout everything and adversity and things that happen in your life is you are willing to take action. And for the folks that are listening to us today, is like, are you a person who is actually taking that action, or are you that person who is sitting back complaining? When we talked about our friends and our associations,
Yeah.
I promise you, our friends and associations, the ones that are not part of our associations again, are the ones that sit and complain all the time.
That's right. It's funny is when I got into the personal development world and just kind of threw myself into it, I used to sign my my emails, Think Successfully, Tracy Brinkman.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for years. And then I forget what the significant event was, but there was an event was like, well, God dang it. I got this all wrong. Not that thinking successfully is wrong, but it's only half the formula.
Only half of it, yeah.
You have to think successfully and take action.
Yes.
Because you're not going to think yourself into anything except for maybe a headache.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if you're taking action but not thinking you're going to be successful, then you might be taking the wrong action. So you gotta kind of, they work together. They're like a yin and a yang symbol there, and there's a little of each in the other. You got to put them both together. So now, for the past, I don't know, 25 years or so, that's how I sign my emails. That's how I sign off my show for my podcast. Is think successfully and take action.
And take action. I love it, love it. I don't even think I've ever received an email from you, and I could just by having this conversation with you for 45 minutes, I can tell that second part is what moves the needle.
It is
for you. Thank you for being on today. If there's some things, I had a great conversation, but I want to give you the opportunity to maybe even talk about some of the things that you wanted to as you came on the show. How to get a hold of you and all that kind of stuff. And so I'll go ahead and take the time and then maybe give us some final thoughts. That would be awesome.
I tell you what, if my bearded wisdom has resonated with you, come check me out. Dark Horse Entrepreneur, like you see across the bottom of the screen there. We got the podcast, or Your Success DNA is the other podcast. So if you're all about personal development, you want to learn how to get more things done, check that out. If you want to learn about side hustles, it's the Dark Horse Entrepreneur. But I'll forewarn you, I don't pull any punches, right? You can probably tell that about me. I just put it out there, right? So if you're looking to be, stroked and complimented, and I'm not for you. I'm just going to say that right now. But because I find that if you just be you, which is the kind of thing I want to leave you with, if you just be who you are, and you're going out there to do good things, that's the caveat, because some people are just who they are is not a good person, probably not listening to your show anyway. So just be who you are, and those that can help you and that you can help will be drawn towards you. Okay. I was lucky enough to learn this way back when what I started learning it. I got into martial arts as a teenager as well. It's because I was 4'3" in the 9th grade. So I was a little guy with a big mouth. So the two don't go work. So I had to learn to, do this, because I had that guy. My dad said, "So what are you going to do about it?" Okay, go handle it myself. So I learned martial arts as a defense, and sometimes it's offense too. Let's be honest. I'm not going to lie about it. But one of the early books that I read was written by Bruce Lee. It was called The Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and it was mostly philosophy in this book. There was a few teachings, but it was a lot of philosophy, which I was so glad I learned early, because it was bubbling under the surface for years. Anyway, the quote, sorry, I'm stumbling across my words here. The quote that stuck with me all through these years was, absorb what's useful, discard the rest, and add what's uniquely you. So it doesn't matter whether you're listening to a podcast like you are right now, reading a book, watching a video on YouTube, or having a conversation with someone you love dearly. Absorb what's useful in that moment, right then and there. Discard the rest. It doesn't matter. If it's got you worked up and you can't do anything about it, fine. Just set it up on the shelf and then add something, that little spice that only you can add. You do that 5 days a week in your life's going to take an amazing change that you're not even ready for. Let me add one more piece for you. If you've read a book, watched a video or something that you're like, man, that so impacted my life, go back now, reread that book, re-listen to that audio, re-watch that video, because you're going to be in a different place in your life. You're going to find new nuggets. You're going to appreciate the old ones because you're like, yeah, that's where I learned it. I learned it right there. But you're going to find new nuggets in the same thing because you're going to be absorbing what's useful now and discarding the stuff you've already learned. I don't need to worry about that. You can focus on the new stuff. And then again, add what's uniquely you, and it's going to jump you forward all over again.
I love that. Add what's uniquely you.
That's the magic.
Take what you can, discard the rest. But then that piece right there, that's that other nugget, right? That's that second, third half was like add what's uniquely you to it, not just take what's in there. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being on today. I'm inviting myself to your podcast because I want to continue our conversations. So if you would love to have me, I would love to be on it, but this can't be our last time we have a conversation. So
I'm sure it won't be.
Come back online.
We've pulled ourselves into the world.
Yeah, we did. And so thank you. And so many nuggets. I'm going to go back and listen. I'm going to go back and I already got 3 pages of notes, and I want to take some more of just those things that we can pull out that make us uniquely us, and be able to find that in the action we take and living in purpose. If this is the first time you see one of our podcasts, I'd love for you to hit notifications and subscribe, and we can get more content out to you. We're doing some phenomenal stuff with the show and getting ready to do some anthology books and just some cool things that were going to happen. So I invite you to be there. Hey, once you remember, you're God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. I can't wait to talk to you on the next one. Check out my community, becomingtheperson.com. If you're wanting to grow the way that you believe that you should grow and be put on this earth, like the purpose you're put on this earth with, and you might not know how to do it, let us help you find it. So you guys have an amazing, awesome, just incredible day, and we will talk to you on the next one. Thank you so much, Tracy. It's been amazing.
My pleasure.